Okay, hi everyone. My name is Thomas Edinger. I'm the managing director of a company called Big River Analytics, and I've been working closely with Harmony Johnson on the development of a suite of tools intended to support SGIGs in their data-related work. Um, I'm going to be talking this morning about the data collection and analysis tool, and we'll delve into the ins and outs of primary data collection and analysis, a critical component of the data governance and management toolkit for self-governing Indigenous governments. We'll explore what primary data are, when they're needed, and key considerations for scoping a data collection exercise. From there, we'll walk through the essential elements of survey design, including sampling, questionnaire development, and testing. We'll also discuss the importance of a well-planned enumeration process with a focus on recruitment, training, and interviewing techniques. And finally, we'll touch on data processing and analysis, and the wide array of reporting products that can be generated to meet the needs of various audiences. By the end of this section, you'll have a bit more of an understanding of the primary data collection and analysis process, ideally equipping you with the knowledge to effectively gather and utilize data to support well-being data collection related initiatives. So I'm sharing here the landing page for the data collection and analysis site. So like the other tools, you can access the full tool at this download link. This is ultimately where the video will be placed that we're recording today. And we've got a bit of a summary, so like a table of contents with a brief summary of the information contained in the tool ultimately that resides directly on the website. So I'll flip over to the full data collection and analysis tool. I will say in terms of context, the development of this tool draws on a lot of the work that both Harmony and I have done conducting large-scale primary data collection exercises. And I really wanted to include, in as much as possible, all of the kind of tips and tricks or mistakes that we'd made or guidance around avoiding the mistakes that we've made. Those are hard-fought or hard-won lessons, and I guess, yeah, the expression that comes to mind when I'm providing a description of this tool is what is it? Experience. You can't buy experience, but it sure is expensive. That's one of my favorite expressions, and it really rings true for this tool in particular. In terms of situating the tool, this is one tool in this broader suite, and the intention is to provide options and recommendations for data collection and for creating and reporting statistics. Again, another kind of long tool, but this one covers each of the relevant topics that we felt should be included in terms of a tool that covers and guides folks in developing the elements of a primary data collection exercise, and then about some of the choices that we think are critical in the development of a research plan and ultimately a primary data collection exercise. So I'll give you a quick overview of each of these sections, and maybe I'll just stick on the table of contents instead of scrolling all the way through. But we cover what are primary data. So primary data are information that doesn't already exist and needs to be collected for a specific research purpose. So for example, understanding well-being in a particular nation, in a particular Indigenous government, Indigenous context. And primary data are useful for precision and ultimately capturing the specific experiences of members or citizens as it relates to well-being in this context. In terms of the scoping section covers, I guess, highlights the importance of this step in deeply understanding the information needs driving data collection. So this section includes some guiding questions. What are the priority areas for data collection? What is the capacity available for this exercise? And what do we have in terms of people, time, and funding to undertake the exercise? This also highlights probably the most important question, which is ultimately, are we collecting a census or are we doing a survey? Most people gravitate to the idea of a census because it aligns, I think, with this idea or this notion of wanting to be inclusive of everyone's voices. I will say, having done both surveys and a few census enumerations, that a census is a lot more challenging than a survey. Basically the tools of statistics have been invented so we don't have to do a census by and large. There are a great way to save money and reduce effort. That said, it is hard. It is a hard thing to tell someone interested in providing their, response, particularly in an exercise like this, that, they weren't part of the sample, and so their information wouldn't be included. And that's a trade-off that folks will have to kind of make for themselves. We do go into survey design. So the goal, of course, is to be representative. If you're doing a survey that is from a sample of the entire population, we go about how to do that. We go about talking about steps to identify a survey frame, decide on the sample design, determine sample size, and how to produce a random sample. So all of those are included here. I guess I would say to you, these are like deep topics, and there's a lot of content out there. So for example, Statistics Canada has kind of a wonderful manual, but I think it's about 400 pages long and quite technical. And so the goal was to not just reproduce that, but to provide, guidance at a bit of a higher level in terms of where you can go and what considerations you should make in survey design and in primary data collection more generally. We talk about questionnaire development, again, kind of drawing on our experience and some of the lessons that we've learned there. How to be careful about question wording, the order of questions, ensuring that layout is as efficient as possible. Testing with users is important, right? We cover that. And even just reading the questions out loud, like the difference in terms of how questions are worded after you've written them, and then when you read them out loud to yourself, is just wild. The whole question sometimes gets flipped kind of on its head. There's also some guidance as it relates to customization and relevance for SGIGs. We cover enumeration. So referring to enumeration is when folks are actually out in the field collecting the information. This is usually the most labor intensive and I would say stressful part of an exercise like this. We encourage folks to have varied methods. So you're trying to kind of get responses at the lowest possible cost. And so we've been using kind of a tiered approach for you to encourage folks to participate online, over the phone, and then ultimately, like worst case scenario, you're kind of going door to door. And that's just because door to door is, the most costly version of obtaining a response to a questionnaire. We talk about recruitment and training, how to get folks interested in going out into the community and collecting this information. And we talk about interviewing, kind of tips and strategies. The one that always comes to mind, I remember one of the big data collection exercises that I did. I started out the survey. If it's not clear, I'm like a little bit introverted, and so I remember knocking on the first door and just hoping that no one would be home because I didn't want to face someone on the other side of the door. And by the end of it, I was stopping people in their driveway as they were trying to drive away because I was so desperate for the responses. And so some of the lessons learned in terms of like building up that confidence and how to get a response from people, we've covered in here. And just a quick example that comes to mind is I remember knocking on the door, and if you stand right by the door, people are a little bit taken aback. And so knocking on the door and taking 3 steps back and ideally 1 step down on a doorstep, actually you get way better responses from people. So all of those kind of like little tricks that, like I said, were hard won are included in this tool. We do go into some detail on data processing and analysis. We talk about data cleaning, how to find inconsistencies and errors. There's this concept of weighting. So like we said, we're looking for a representative sample. And even if we do a census, there's a good chance that it won't exactly reflect the population that we're interested in. So there might be some weighting of responses required to make inference about the broader population. And we provide some guidance in terms of when it makes sense to, external or hire an external service provider to conduct some more sophisticated analysis. And finally, we talk about some considerations as it relates to reporting. So how can we make this work as useful as possible for different audiences? Of course, community members are going to be interested in looking at the results, but so will, leadership, so will other, departments. And there are different products that tend to provide the relevant information for different interested parties. And so we've described those. Some examples are summary reports. There's an interactive web tool. Ad hoc analysis is something that always comes up. You know, someone will see the data and develop an interest and want to do some analysis with it. And we also discuss kind of the cost drivers in reporting. This is really where primary data collection exercises can differentiate themselves from a cost perspective based on the level and detail and sophistication of the reporting that's taking place. And yeah, that's all I've got for the data collection and analysis tool. Thanks.